Arapera Ngaha is Tumuaki of Taha Māori, the Māori arm of the Methodist Church of New Zealand, and she is a passionate advocate for social justice, environmental stewardship, and the integrity of Te Tiriti Te Waitangi. Her work emphasises honouring the treaty's provisions and promoting equity within the community. Arapera's deep commitment to integrating faith with social justice provides a unique perspective on sustainable practice and environmental care. Thank you, Arapera.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa. Mānawa mai a te putanga o Matariki. Mānawa mai a te ariki o te rangi. Mānawa mai e te mātahi o te tau. Welcome the rising of Matariki. Welcome the rising of the Lord of the sky. Welcome to the Māori in New Year. Ko puhanga tōhora te maunga, ko mangatawa rao ko o taua ngā awa, ko te rautawa inui te whare tūpuna, ko pukerata te marae, I roto I te riu o Hokianga. Ko ngai tū te hapu, ko ngā puhi nui tonu te iwi, ko hau e tū mai nei ko Arapera Ngaha. Briefly, people, that is my introduction. I come from a little place in the Hokianga called Rotaua, and my maunga is Puhanga Tohora, and there are two rivers that run through my valley, Mangatawa and Rotaua. Pukerata is my marae, and I am of Ngāpuhi extraction. Ko tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou, ka tuku te mihi. Mihi mahana I tēnei rā tino mahana. Koutou kua tai a tinana mai, koutou anō I tai a ipurangi mai. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Today we were to have a joint presentation, but my colleague Juana Flay could not be here and she gives her apologies. So I will begin. Next slide, please. The title of this presentation today is Why Parakore? Parakore. The meaning of parakore is simply without rubbish or dirt. From one simple level of cleanliness to the highest level of things being pristine. And that's ideally what we aim to do. What climate justice and care for our planet is all about. So for a Māori perspective on this issue of climate justice, we have to begin with our earth and the land in which we live today. That is Papatuanuku. And in a moment I'm going to share a small video clip that illustrates the Māori creation story. Indigenous peoples all over the world have their own story of how the world began. And of course, the Jewish creation story is recorded in Genesis, in the Bible. There are similarities and there are differences. After that, I will then speak to the time of the year we're in, Matariki, and just finish with some points about the Church's commitment to this theme of a decade of climate justice. So if we can just play this slide, this video, please. Here's a beautiful picture of this chap called Tāwhiri Mātia. He was the atua of the winds and all that is within the domain between sky and earth. He was the sibling who was not happy about his parents being separated. Of all the siblings, he was the one who was not happy at all. And so he became really angry when the separation took place. He missed his father the most and resented his siblings for their strong desire to separate Papatuanuku and Ranginui. He was so angry that he threatened to cast storms and winds to rain down on them all. And then he scratched out his own eyes, crushed them, and threw them into the sky. And they became the star cluster that we know as matariki. Mata is a word for eyes. There are several words for eyes, but mata is one of them. And so matariki is also known as the eyes of the atua tāwhirimātia. Matariki. In the Māori lunar calendar, can we shift, next slide please? Matariki in the Māori calendar, in the Māori lunar calendar, also signals the beginning of the Māori year. Matariki is that time of the year when that star cluster appears above the horizon in the sky. For some of the West Coast tribes, Matariki isn't easily seen because it lies low on the horizon. Or, as for parts of Taranaki, the star cluster rises over the horizon on the seaside and is hidden by the mountain, Mount Taranaki. In Wanganui, especially if you're further up the river, the star Puanga is visible long before Matariki. The west coast of Northland also experiences and celebrates Puanga rather than Matariki, again, because Puanga rises and is more easily seen than Matariki. It's all a matter of location. Puanga, Rigel, is the very bright star that rises up into the horizon ahead of Matariki. Matariki is that cluster of stars known as Pleiades. It indicates change, a change of season, a time for renewal, a time for rebirth. And in doing this, it allows us to take time out to let go of that which was the year gone by. And especially, we take the time to remember and farewell those of our loved ones who have passed in that year. So we take the time to let go of the past and look forward into the future. Next slide. At this time of the year, Papatuanuku is resting. It's a time for the land to be cleared of last year's growth, the land to be turned and to lie fallow for a couple of months, ready for spring planting. As I said, it signals the turning of the seasons. Next slide. The royal standard of the kingitanga depicts in the centre the image of Matariki, lending credence to the star cluster, signalling the beginning of the lunar cycle and the new Māori calendar. For Māori, life was ordered by the lunar calendar. So the stars and the moon in particular were those elements that signal changes in our seasons. Next slide, please. The 9 stars that make up the Matariki cluster represent for Māori several elements. Reminders. Each represents a particular sphere of influence, and as we celebrate the arrival of Matariki, we do so by engaging in that sphere. For instance, I've talked about taking time to remember those who have passed in the last year and to farewell them. That is the star Pohutakawa. Waiti, all things from the bodies of fresh water. That includes any of the eels, for instance, watercress, all those things that grow in the bodies of fresh water, in our lakes and in our rivers and streams. Waita, all things from the moana. So that's all your seafood, your fish, and kina, paua, all those yummy things. Waipuna Arangi is our connection to the rain. Again, remembering we need the rain for sustenance, for watering our soil so that things will grow. Papatuanuku reminds us of the food that grows within the soil, our vegetables in particular. Tipuarangi, food that grows above the earth. So that's your birds, your animals, your worms, bees that pollinate our plants, our flowers, and encourage growth. Ururangi is the star associated with the winds. Hiwaitarangi is that wishing star, that star that we put all our hopes and dreams into. And Matariki, the main star, allows us opportunities to reflect on where we've been, what we hope for the future. This year is the second year that we've had a public holiday for Matariki. Landed on a Friday, great. It was really great, except that for many of us, we forgot that we actually had a holiday. I know I did, and then all of a sudden running around thinking, what can I do for this weekend? As it happened, I have a nephew who had decided that he would take on a puoro, which is a tattoo from his waist, just above his waist, down to just below the knees. 5 days of pain and torture. He spent the first 4 days at his friend's place who was doing the work, and the last day he went home and was completed at his home. And he invited family to come along and join in celebrating this particular marvel. And it truly is a marvel. My sister and I went along and said, yeah, okay, don't really want to watch you going through all that pain, Jason, but yeah, we'll be there when it's finished and celebrate with you. So that was Matariki Day. And we get there, and not only did we get a showing of this beautiful tattoo, but we had a hangi lunch. And I thought, there's Matariki. Celebrating through food, through companionship, through relationships. And he had friends and family all there together, sharing the gifts of Matariki, breaking bread together in a very significant way. Next slide. At Methodist Conference 2023, this book was launched, and it includes several stories about how we can support moves to reduce the impact of the negative effects of climate change. This book also includes a couple of chapters that do not, on the surface, appear to relate to te taiao or to our environment, but they talk about other aspects that are present in our lives and then relate back to our environment. The first one I want to mention is a chapter by Rowan Tautari, who writes about whakapapa, who writes about her upbringing in a country community, very much a rural community where everybody knew everybody else, although your neighbour was a couple of hundred metres down the road, a paddock or two between homes and stuff. But she talks about the relationships in that little community and the relationships that community had with Papatuanuku, with their environment, and then talks to what there is now. So measuring back in time and what is now was a way for her to pull those stories together, again, about our environment and what's changed and what can we do better. The second piece is one written by Rowan's brother, Jonathan, who raises concerns around haua, or people with disabilities. People from the disability sector of our communities. For Jonathan, he raises the concern about how do we care for and protect those whose ability to evacuate an emergency and in emergency situations is compromised. We heard stories about people during the earthquake crisis in Christchurch not being able to evacuate from buildings. Wheelchairs. How do we manage people in wheelchairs? How do we manage people who simply are slower? Responses to climate disasters in recent times have highlighted the inadequacies in the way that we manage the response to emergency situations for some of those less able. And we need to address these matters. I raise these two particular pieces simply to show what happens when we don't address all issues around climate change. What has this got to do around parakore? It's all about renewal and revitalising, rekindling the wā of Papatuanuku. If we look after our earth, the earth will look after us. We have to do better. We have to do our best to prevent the waste and the destruction of Papatuanuku through inappropriate disposals of waste. We have to rekindle the wā of Papatuanuku. We have to restore the balance of nature in our environment for Papatuanuku and do our best to restore our home to a state of parakore. We have nowhere else to go. Nā reira, kua mutu tēnei i tēnei wā. Māori ora ki a tātou, me mānawatia a matariki. Now, as with all Māori presentations, we would generally finish with a waiata. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let television do that. But I want to run you through so you can join as well, okay? So can we go back a couple of slides to the names of the back a couple of slides to the names of the stars first, please, Peter. Nago?
I've got it. Yeah, I've just got to find the mouse.
That one. So, hands out, everybody. Waiti. Waita. Waipunarangi. One after the other. Waipunarangi. Tupuanuku. Tupuarangi. Ururangi. Hiwa i te rangi. E matariki. Matariki. All right, the children will show us how to do that.